Welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty.
In addition, just so yeah, why should we wait for CNN or the Times to come out and put their blessing on it? Why?
Sure.
Why, Leon?
Well, I wish I had the answer to that, Tim. But I think this is a major failure in the direction of our great republic, because we now according to, I guess, the powers that be, we now need the New York Times to tell us, or some other left-wing outlet to tell us that something is authentic before we could believe it, or before we could read it on Facebook or Twitter, or before we are free to talk about it without being called a Russian asset or Russian disinformation spreader or something like that. This is disturbing. This is seriously disturbing. Now, Jason, I totally agree with you. This is disturbing.
And keep in mind, too, this is the same group that's behind the 1619 Project, right? I mean, the New York Times. So the idea that they clearly have a bent on a certain version of history, both past and going forward.
Yes.
It's a little bit disturbing that they have that much pull, but maybe we'll see an erosion of their pull as clearly these stories keep coming out one after another that shows that, hey, if you want to be first, don't read the Times, because clearly the Times is not leading the way with the news. They're actually recording. I mean, really, a story that is about a year and a half old, and now they're finally on it. I mean, wow, what bang up investigating journalism this is. The idea that they're telling us all about it. Is the Times now a history journal? Is that what we're dealing with here?
Yeah. Instead of the news, they ought to be calling themselves the olds.
Yeah. The New York olds.
New York olds.
Well, this does bring up, though, I mean, that now there are becoming more and more new outlets that people are starting to turn to and starting to splinter away. And Joe Rogan has recently also come out, and he's just a guy with a podcast who is also calling BS when he thinks he sees it, and he is calling BS on this now. He is saying that Biden and the media lied about the laptop, and of course he's the biggest podcaster in the country, so that brings a little weight. But one of the things I wanted to add on to this, though, before I hand it over to you guys, is the idea that how much effort is being made by the administration and social media to silence him as well. So, I mean, it's not just the usual conservative sources, it's anybody who speaks out of turn. And, aside from all of the attacks that have been made about him over COVID and I'm sure about issues like this, one story that came out a couple months ago that I thought was pretty disturbing on this route is when the Surgeon General literally came out and tried to silence Joe Rogan, and saying that essentially, this is a person with authority in the government who is literally trying to direct private entities to silence Joe Rogan. And let me read you the quote, because here's what he said to MSNBC back in January. He said, "We can have the best science available. We can have the best public health expertise available. It won't help people if they don't have access to accurate information. People have the right to make their own decisions, but they also have the right to have accurate information to make that decision with. This is not just about what the government can do. This is about companies and individuals recognizing that the only way to get past misinformation is if we are careful about the way we say and use the power that we have to limit the spread of misinformation." And of course, who's identifying the misinformation? He's identifying the misinformation, saying whatever Joe Rogan and the expert that Joe Rogan is interviewing, because remember, he was interviewing literally one of the guys who I can't remember his name at the moment, but
Dr. Malone, I think his name, Dr.
Malone, yes, who was one of the designers of the technology for the vaccine that everybody is using and that they're trumpeting in the administration, and they're calling him misinformation. They're calling anybody who doesn't go along with their tune misinformation. So you're free to decide whatever you want, but we're going to very closely limit the choices of what you can say you want, essentially by not letting you hear anything, essentially. So anyways, you guys want to go ahead with the Joe Rogan issue? And
Yeah, about Joe Rogan, I just want to say in the article it says he's very large. He's outpacing their viewership, the viewership of these mainstream media types. So that's what they're angry about, is that they're being outpaced by this guy on the internet. And that's the beauty of the internet, the beauty of podcasts, like ours, as far as that goes, and anything else that's out there. It used to be when I was growing up and all the way through my adulthood, until just recently. All you had was Channel 3, ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox came along late in the game.
1996, Tim. Go ahead, yes.
That's pretty darn late. That's not that long ago. So all you had was the three major news outlets, and they all trumpeted the same old stuff. They all got their stuff from whatever that main source is, and that's it. And that's all you had. I mean, unless you read a book, which was not as easy as listening to a podcast on your way to work. Let's face it. So today we have a plethora of information sources. And oh my gosh, you got to do some work. You got to listen to it. You got to decide for yourself. Well, if is this person full of malarkey, or are they worth listening to? And then eventually, if you find somebody like a Joe Rogan or Tom Woods or whoever has a podcast you trust, and the people that he brings, or he or she brings onto the show, you trust, or at least you want to listen to, then do it, and stop watching television. Just stop right now.
Tim, you're right. I think it's a good thing. We have competition out there, and there are many sources of information for us to go to. I go to a variety of them. I do look at CNN and all of them and that kind of stuff. CNN.com in particular. Yeah. But I also go to a lot of other sources that I find more trustworthy. So I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing about the competition. But I really I'm disturbed and concerned about this government intent to limit the so-called spread of misinformation. Because this is, if you listen to what Jason just quoted, the last sentence there by the Surgeon General was about, we have whatever powers we have that we can use to limit the spread of misinformation. Well, who the hell is going to determine what misinformation is? We want the Biden administration to determine what misinformation is. But I don't want, and this is where I have my issue, I don't want the government at all attacking the First Amendment. That is why we have the First Amendment in the first case, to prevent the government from intruding into what we hear, what we listen to, and what we believe. We have to keep these people out of our lives, but they are trying to intrude upon it by attacking the First Amendment. This is what we were talking about this war on the First Amendment. We have to be careful that these people don't lead us down a very dirty path into nothingness that will destroy our republic. We have to be careful about this.
Let me rephrase that pompous tyrant's sentence. What powers do we have to repress freedom of speech, is what he really was saying. Exactly what he was saying. What powers do we have, us pompous asses, to repress freedom of speech?
Thank you for listening to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast.